Straight Shift with the Car Chick, the podcast that's all about cars, buying, selling, fixing, and driving, and sometimes pretty fast if you're the car chick. Now, here she is.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Straight Shift. I've got a big bucket list trip coming up. I'm going to be flying over to the UK, spending a couple of days tooling around the English countryside in a rental car, where I'm going to hit the bucket list item of driving on the wrong side of the road, and also seeing Stonehenge, and then taking a transatlantic crossing back to New York on the Queen Mary 2. So finally getting to do this big bucket list thing that has been sitting out there on my list for probably 20 years. So actually gonna happen. I've been thinking about bucket lists a lot lately. So when the founder and CEO of the world's largest supercar driving experience reached out to me and said, hey, let's do a podcast together, I was like, yes, please. Hell yes. That's absolutely perfect. So in this episode, we're going to talk about driving supercars on a racetrack, and why Adam and I both believe that even if you're not a motorhead, why this type of experience needs to be on your bucket list. So let's just get into it. My guest today is Adam Olalde, the founder and CEO of Xtreme Xperience. Welcome, Adam. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
You know, Adam, you and I have some things in common other than our addiction to racetracks. And neither of us really set out in life to be entrepreneurs, but rather we tripped over an opportunity because we saw a gap in the market between what consumers wanted and what was actually available to them. So please tell our listeners a little bit more about how you got this idea when you were just 25 years old to let complete strangers take insanely expensive supercars that you didn't even own then out on a racetrack. Because, you know, hey, what could possibly go wrong with that?
You know, that is probably the most accurate synopsis of how most entrepreneurs get into business. And then in our industry, you know, the car industry is a very small one, as you know. And the gaps in what the market offers and what people want to do are so prevalent, in my opinion, that we are often winging it, making it up on the fly, and just trying to hope and pray that it doesn't go too wrong. But like you said, I tripped over it, and I actually got into the luxury concierge industry. So I thought what people wanted was to be able to drive these cars and act like the owners of these cars, but then give them back at the end. And I wasn't wrong, but there are far fewer people that economically could pull that off, because even to rent a Ferrari, it costs a couple $1,000s a day, and then we have to maintain it, and it comes back with 3 wheels, and people are like, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, what is going? This industry is a mess. And I found, though, that if I could fine tune that and get people the experience that they wanted at the price point that they could afford to pay, that we could really grow this thing. And then I said, that's experiential. We're going to create experiences. And so I tripped over it. I got back up, and then I saw in front of me. And I actually hosted our first racetrack experience as a marketing event to get more eyeballs on the rental car business brand. And when 0 people who came to the racetrack came back to rent a car, I said, well, if 2,000 people showed up for my marketing event and 0 people came to rent a car, maybe that's the business that I should go after. And that's what we did. And like you said, I've been writing the book ever since, because there isn't a book. I don't think there's going to be another one. So it's up to me to author it, and we're doing the best we can.
I think that really is what entrepreneurship is all about, is that pivoting, because you try something and you think, oh, this will be great. And then the market tells you something completely different, and you go, oh, okay. And you just pivot because you're listening to your customers and what they want. And just because everybody else out there is like, oh, that can't be done. That's crazy. You shouldn't do that. There's no way to do that. If you just have the mentality of anything can be done, if you're crazy enough to try it and figure it out, and be okay with accepting that failure is part of it. You know, I do a keynote speech called Lessons from the Racetrack that's about overcoming failure, because I learned that being an entrepreneur and running a business is a lot like racing cars. You're going to fail about 80% of the time. And that's okay, because it's what you learn and then what you do with that other 20% that matters. So, I really commend you for, taking this, very risky idea and making it work and making it into something that is just so damn fun and reasonably affordable for the average person. Because, none of us are going to be able to afford one of these cars in our lifetime. Who are we kidding? But to be able to drive one and to be able to drive it on the racetrack.
We knew why these cars were built. We knew how people wanted to experience them. We just needed to figure out, we as society needed to figure out a place to do that. And Xtreme Xperience decided that we could raise our hand and we could be that place. We'll bring the show to you. We'll keep it affordable. We'll keep it safe. We'll let you put the pedal to the metal. And guess what? You have to come back a few laps later so I know where you are, and then we can keep the program running. And that's really what it was all about. Yeah. And we've had a blast because, to your point, failure is really only accepting that it's over, falling down and getting back up. That's just learning. That's just learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm a big believer in, if you're going to have one of these cars. So I had an old friend from back in my consulting days who started a business. It was kind of like a timeshare on these cars. We thought, okay, people don't want to necessarily buy one, but they can own a timeshare on it and use the different cars in the fleet kind of, whenever they wanted, a certain amount per month. But he found that didn't work either because the people that wanted to own them wanted the ownership. They wanted to have it in their garage so that they could bring all their friends over and show it off and brag that they could own it. They didn't necessarily drive it, and most of them don't even know how to drive it. I can't even tell you how many accidents I see happen in the news with celebrities and, your athletes that are doing stupid things because all of a sudden they have all this money and they go out and buy this supercar, but they never learn to drive it. In my opinion, there is no point in even owning one of these cars if you are not going to take it on the racetrack where it belongs and learn how to drive it properly and learn how to drive it safely. Why have 600 horsepower if you can't use it and you can't use it safely and you can't use it legally? That's just silly.
And that's why we pivoted so quickly from the rental car and concierge business, because it just wasn't what those cars were designed for. Driving them down the street and looking rich. It wasn't even feeling wealthy, like you just alluded to, because you rented it. And that's kind of like a faux pas in the industry. So it wasn't, people didn't want to just look rich. They wanted to feel rich. And that was not what I was in the business to provide. And I couldn't do that for them. But if you wanted to just feel speed and adrenaline and check that box, could you do what you watch on TV when you see F1 and IndyCar and everything? Well, that we could provide. And we have a lot of fun every year doing that.
And that's great. And it's so different from like the NASCAR experience because, they don't actually let you drive. Trust me, I asked and they said no, even to me. But, I also don't like, this whole drive fast, turn left thing. People who are NASCAR fans, they want to experience that. That's a phenomenal thing to do. But those of us that grew up watching F1 and, I've been road course racing most of my life, turning left and turning right is just phenomenal. But being able to do it in one of these cars that the whole reason they exist is they were born from this tradition of European racing. That's just a whole different ball game. But I found most people that have a bucket list, or at least they say they have a bucket list, almost none of them ever actually check anything off that list. Why do you think that is? I know you have kind of called it the someday effect.
So you heard about it. You heard about my someday effect.
I did. And I love that idea. That's so accurate.
Because I ultimately am successful at what I do, not because I'm passionate about it. And when I say it, I mean driving a Ferrari on a racetrack or whatever it might be. I did not grow up a race car driver. I did not grow up wrenching on cars and maintaining my own cars. I grew up wanting to get the most out of life. I wanted to enjoy everything that life could give me. And I saw when I looked around me how many people were putting it off for someday. And that drove me crazy. I didn't know why it drove me crazy as a kid, but I was like, okay, so you're going to work your whole life. You're going to make all the sacrifices. You're going to retire. And right when you can retire and may have enough money to buy that Ferrari, now you're too old to get out there and enjoy driving it, and I said, this is crazy. This whole concept is crazy. I want to enjoy life when I got the most life to enjoy. Now, that's a little contradictory because we don't have the means necessarily when we're younger, or if we, or if we do, we're giving it to children and whatever else sucks the life out of the midlife.
Yet another reason I don't have children.
And I love mine, but they're a lot. And so I said, hey, there's got to be a way to get the most out of someday today. And I didn't start this business with that in mind. I learned that through this business. I watch 100,000 people a year come open their eyes and experience someday with Xtreme Xperience. And I go, that's the gift I'm giving them. I'm not giving them the Ferrari and the Lamborghini like they think. That's why they came. But I'm unlocking their idea that, hey, you can get out there and experience someday today. And hopefully that inspires you and that changes the way you look at things and say, hey, I'm going to take some more chances. I'm not going to accept failure. I'm just going to enjoy every day because it's a gift, and I'm not worried about buying a Ferrari when I retire one day. And so I really got on board with that. And I said, hey, my job isn't to inspire people to think about what they would want to do one day or put on their bucket list. My job is to challenge why you're not doing it today.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about then how this experience works and what kind of cool cars are in it. So if someone has this on their bucket list, what do they need to look for? Tell us how the Xtreme Xperience works.
We try to make it as easy as possible. And I did this, going back to your lesson on entrepreneurship, totally by accident. The good part about most entrepreneurs and CEOs is that we make a lot of decisions and then we see what happens. We don't do a lot of research. No. I live by the 40-70 rule. If I did less than 40% of the amount of research, right, then maybe I should do a little bit more. But if anything more than 70 and I've overthought it, the idea is old, move on. And so I operate right around 50. If I've thought about it for 50% of the time, then that's good enough. Let's put this plan into action. And that's what we did. So I started a racing company in Chicago, not realizing that car payments were due 12 months out of the year. But in Chicago, you can only race about 4 or 5 months out of the year.
Yeah, this thing called winter.
Yeah. So the first winter came and I said, we have a problem. So I said, well, the only way to keep making car payments is to keep letting people drive these cars. So I loaded up a truck and I took it to Texas and I said, okay, we can drive here now. It does snow in Texas as well, but I dodged it the first season. Thank goodness. God.
Hey, I've been at Road Atlanta in the snow. It's fine. It's fine.
It can be done. We don't do that extreme experience yet, but after this many years, we probably could figure it out. So we loaded up our show and we took it on the road, and that was 13 years ago. And I didn't look back. We just became a traveling car experience, supercar experience specifically, because then we could keep it accessible. We could bring it to every city in the nation that had a racetrack within about an hour or so. We could bring it to people affordably because by planning structured events, now I could, amortize expenses and I could sell you a ticket that you could afford. And then, of course, safely, because in the beginning, I sat in the right seat with the first customer who drove. And I realized, going back to what I said before, not being a pro race car driver, let alone instructor, which is two very different roles. I survived 3 or 4 laps around the racetrack. I got out and I said, there's got to be pros who do this. Need to hire them. And so we brought that element into our program, and they don't keep you from max performance. They encourage safe performance, and you always get more out of your driving experience because of the crew of instructors that we have. And then I said, we need to take this everywhere. And I think we're going to make 55 stops in 55 markets next year. We've got probably about 80 cars in our fleet. The Ferraris and Lamborghinis, of course, are the most popular. Porsches come in number 3. We have a couple models of Porsche. And then we kind of have a rotating rest of our fleet. We try to switch it up every year, from the Nissan GTRs, Audi R8s. We have had McLarens at times. We've got Corvette Z06s now. So we are limited to a certain extent because we have to pack everything up in a semi-truck and bring it out to you. But we still bring 20, 25 cars per city. So there's plenty to choose from and plenty of cool cities to visit if that's on your bucket list. Or if you're just at home and only have an afternoon to make of it, we will come when it's convenient and you can come out and see us. And so throughout the years, we've added little elements to our program. We've hosted rallies, open road driving experiences, all day driving events if you wanted to actually come out and drive every single car in the fleet with a dedicated instructor, for instance. We have done autocrosses, but ultimately the core of what we do is our supercar driving tour, and we just grow it every year.
I can't imagine putting one of these supercars on an autocross course that's so small and so tight. I mean, you can't even use any of that horsepower.
No, it was not the most. It was definitely not the most popular of the idea, because people get in a Ferrari and they say speedometer goes to 220, so I think I should be getting pretty close to that. And in an autocross, of course, you never would. The cars themselves mechanically didn't like it either. But
no.
But the road courses are the perfect medium, right? We don't just turn left; we make lefts and rights, and we go straight. We don't do backwards, ideally. And
ideally,
yeah. But that's really what, we found the sweet spot, and people can always manage 10, 12 minutes on the racetrack before they get a little fatigued, because they're not pro drivers. And so they have no idea what it takes to be a pro, driver. So, we do everything for them. When they show up at the racetrack, they get a safety briefing by one of our pros. Then they go down to pit lane and they go for a ride along first so that they can see the racetrack. We've got the track all set up with visual cues, apex cones and braking zones. It's just things to help them really maximize their driving experience, and the racing line, which is a term that they learned about 15 minutes prior to that. So they go from, pulling in the parking lot. And I mean, we have everything. We've got people who pull in the parking lot in their own Ferrari that they were never going to drive, like they're about to drive my Ferrari. We have people who pull in a minivan because they've never seen a Ferrari. And we've got people who pull in their M3s and their sports cars of their own, their 911s and things like that. So racetrack instruction in the classroom, down to pit lane for some safety gear and for a ride along. Then you meet your drive instructor who jumps in the right seat, and then you go out and give it a whirl. And everybody does great. That cadence really helps familiarize you with the racetrack and the concept of driving. And then I give you a video of yourself in the car afterwards, and a T-shirt that says I did it. And then you get back in your minivan, and the next on-ramp you see just suddenly became a sweeper, and you get to show your family what you learned, and then tell your friends about it and come see us again.
I love it. Yeah. See, I refer to the corner down at the end of my street as turn one. So yeah, I totally get that. But that's the same methodology that we teach. I've been a high performance driving instructor for many, many years now. And so I always like to teach what I call the track virgins. I want the newbies that have never been on the track before, because, I tell them, we are not going to go fast today. We are going to learn how to put the car in the right place every time. And sometimes that's just like, you can just see the weight lift off their shoulders, and they're just like, oh, phew. And they don't realize that their lap time has gone down by 12 seconds from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, because they have learned that technique. They've learned what the racing line is. They've learned what an apex is and where it is and how to hit it every time. And those are skills that you can apply on the street every day, because nothing drives me more nuts than getting onto the freeway and watching people early apex the on-ramp every time. Drives me absolutely crazy. I'm like, this is just a very basic concept that would make you a much safer driver if you knew how to do it. I think it's great that you do the same things. It's just the difference is you're doing it in this really amazing, ridiculously high horsepower, highly capable, and properly maintained car, because that is key.
Big shout out to my 20 mechanics. They don't leave these cars. Everyone asks, what do you do with these cars when you're done with them? Do you sell them? Are they even assembled properly anymore? Or do they just fall up, you shut the door and it falls apart like the Blues Brothers? And I said, I have pro mechanics in pit lane looking at these cars every 3 to 5 laps. So this car is in better shape than the car at the dealership, and I promise you of that. It's got a little life on it, but I promise you it's in better shape, because we can't have a loose screw, a drip of fluid. We can't have anything. And so these cars are... The
tires are at the proper pressures. The brake pads are good. You have the right type of brake fluid in there. Yeah, I mean, people don't necessarily realize how much prep goes into even these types of cars. We've got a company here based here in Charlotte called GMP Performance, and they're a shop, but they also do track support and help, the rich people that do own the Porsches and other German cars, prep them for the track, and they end up, being their track support at the track days and stuff. These are for the people that have the money to do it, and it's great, but so much goes into that. Even just when I take my little Mini Cooper to the track, because, I instruct in exchange for free track time,
Who doesn't?
But just having to do everything that I have to do in my daily driver, which is not stock, but still making sure I've got the right brake pads, putting in the fancy brake fluid that's not going to boil. And you're realizing the difference between cars that are equipped to do that versus just your daily driver. Because I can tell you from experience that my stock brakes have lasted me almost 4 years on the street, 17 minutes on the track. and I melted them down through the backing plate. So, you've got these cars that, one, they were designed for this. So the chassis are built to do it. The suspension is built to do it. Whereas, your Honda Accord or your Toyota Camry was definitely not designed to do it. And so it gives you such an even better experience. It's about not just going fast, but about cars that were designed to handle these kind of curves. And these are not just straight line drag race cars. These are cars that can handle an obscene number of G-forces in these turns. And for me, that's where all the fun is.
It felt almost sacrilegious at first because I was inexperienced, and growing up, like you said earlier in our conversation, you buy the Ferrari and then you don't let dust get on it, and you don't let dirt get on it, and you don't let miles get on it. And so the first time that I took this Ferrari out and just thrashed it, I was like, one, am I going to break this darn thing? And two, oh my gosh. And then I said, hold on a second. I don't think that Enzo Ferrari wanted these things parked in garages. And then you realize that he's out trying to win F1 races. And so all of the technology and the price that I paid for this car is because it's capable of these things. And suddenly you realize that I think we're doing these cars a disservice if we don't take them on the racetrack and let people drive them. And so it changes your whole perspective on cars and how they're built and what they're built for. And that's been a lot of fun to then just get out there and say, all right, you were built for this. Show me what you got. Let's do it.
My philosophy is also, because I get really irritated with the people that do stupid stuff in these cars on the street. Just a couple of months ago here in Charlotte, they busted a huge street racing ring and they impounded $1.5 million in cars, including 2 Lamborghini Huracans. People, if you can afford a car that costs more than a lot of houses, you can afford a track day. You can afford a membership at the racetrack. They're actually not that expensive unless you're talking about a place like Monticello. If you own one of these, put it where it belongs, and that's on the racetrack, and do it legally, do it safely. Even Paul Walker died riding in a Porsche Carrera GT that was being driven by his best friend and racing team partner. Regular roads are not designed for this type of driving. And it's not legal, it's not safe. So if you own one of these, put it on the damn track. Or why do you own it in the first place?
That goes back to the exact first answer I think I gave you today, which was we founded this company because we know how these cars were built and we know what you want to do with it. And there was not a place to put those two things together. People were trying it on the streets and they were flipping cars. They were not driving them at all. Both are bad options. Come to the racetrack, get in a Ferrari and say, let's see what 0 to 100 in 4 seconds feels like. And you know what? We can safely do that. You can have an awesome time. You can video record the look on your face when you first experience that, and we'll keep doing it. And so that's always been our mission for all those exact same reasons.
I learned car control growing up on the snowy back roads of Wisconsin because, I'm from up north Midwest as well. But you can learn the extremes of the car's handling at like 10 miles an hour when you do it in a big snowy parking lot. To really learn how to control one of these cars with this much power, you have to have the right environment and an instructor to teach you the physics of it, because you just don't experience that anywhere on the road.
Yeah, and the cars are getting crazier. I mean, I've been in business now for, like I said, just shy of 15 years, and we were driving Ferrari 360s and 996s and stuff back then. Mm-hmm. Fantastic cars, but the most recent Ferrari that we have in our fleet, is your standard 296 GTB with the hybrid 880 horsepower. I mean, and it goes up.
That's the slow one.
That's the slow one, exactly. I didn't want to say that on the air, but I want to
relatively speaking, that's the slow one.
That's your entry level, mid-engine Ferrari, rear-engine Ferrari, and so it's the whole industry is pushing towards more powerful things, more turbocharged things, more supercharged and hybrid things. And so you've got to learn how to drive them otherwise.
And not only does it have that much power, but in a lot of these cars, the engine is not where most people are used to the engine being. For the vast majority of people out there, the engine is up front. It's under the hood or the bonnet, as they say in the UK. Very few people understand what the physics are, the dynamics of the car are when the engine's in the back. If you're lucky, it's in the middle, it's right behind you, and you have this just unbelievably perfect weight balance. That's what I started racing in. I had a mid-engine Porsche, and man, that's just, the handling is amazing. But then when you get into like a 911 or another one of the cars where the engine is truly in the back, you want to talk about something that is very, very finicky. And, the difference between, getting the back end to rotate and ending up backwards is like literally a hiccup. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to go, oh, hey, I'm backwards. How'd that happen?
Now, to clarify for anyone listening to this, we do not let you get to that close of the edge. 10 tenths is a true number. It is not a number in our vocabulary. We're more like a 7 tenths. But a 7 tenths to someone who hasn't been on the racetrack before will feel like 1,000 tenths. And so it's pretty cool to keep it well within the guidelines and the safety limitations, but also give you an experience that you've never dreamt of before.
The only other downside is that it's addictive.
I'm a drug dealer. That's not what you
You were a drug dealer and your drug of choice is horsepower. So I get it.
I deal dopamine. I deal it.
That's right.
I deal it straight to the vein. Come get it.
Come get it. Okay, so of all the vehicles in your fleet, which is your personal favorite and why?
I love that question. And I think you actually kind of teed me up for it, because right now, if I was going to go down the racetrack, I would pick our GT4, our Cayman. It's a well-balanced, light car with plenty of horsepower. And it allows you to drive it. I've always compared Lamborghinis to, I've never flown a fighter jet, but I've got to imagine when I fly one day on my bucket list, it will feel a lot like driving a Lamborghini on a racetrack. So that's a complicated one to drive. Ferraris are always great, and they come from the F1 lineage, but just being able to drive a car with one or two fingers and have its nose go where you need it, and just be able to hustle around the racetrack, but be a pure driver's car, I'll pick Porsche 9 times out of 10.
That is one of the main reasons that I am a Porsche girl. I refer to it as just driving with the right pedal, because you can just use the accelerator to change the weight balance of the car. And literally, especially if you get into like a carousel turn, you literally just do this with the gas pedal and it just shifts the weight back and forth. And you get a little understeer, you get a little oversteer, a little understeer, a little oversteer. And you can literally just drive the car around the track with your right foot.
Most of our new drivers, our virgin track drivers, right? Like, you're going to be fighting with an 800 horsepower car the entire way. You either gave it too much or you took away too much, or you're understeering or you're oversteering. You're fighting the whole time. And it's exhilarating, and you get out and you're like, I don't even know what happened, but I'm exhausted. Where, you call it, right foot driving. I call it Mario Kart driving. Same thing. Like, I know in Mario Kart there was a brake button. I don't know which button it was. I did never use it.
Didn't need it.
And that's, when you have the right horsepower, and these cars are way more horsepower than any new track person deserves. But either way, when you have a more reasonable amount of horsepower in a car like a Cayman, then you can do a whole lot more of that. You can focus on putting the car where it needs to be and driving it without just confusing it. So you're not riding a bull. You're just trying to navigate your way around a racetrack. And so, yep, I love those cars. And then our customers do too, right? They all come out and they got to drive the Italian supermodel. So we knock that out of the way. And then I say, okay, now go date a German girl and see how your experience is different. And they see it and they feel it and they know why.
German over-engineering when you're on a racetrack is a really good thing. When you're just a daily driver, it can be a little, pain in the butt. But I do love it on the racetrack. Speaking of tracks, of all the tracks that you run these experiences at, which track is your favorite?
I really enjoyed driving Atlanta Motorsports Park in Dawsonville, Georgia. I mean, there are so many little obscure tracks. We just came home from High Plains Raceway outside Denver.
Wow.
Middle of nowhere.
Yep.
On purpose, but elevate in the middle of the plains outside of Denver, we had, what did we have? 70 plus feet of elevation change. You had a couple 2,000-foot straightaway. It just kind of had everything that a racetrack, a road course needed. And I really enjoyed the heck out of it. But then in November, we're going to go to Circuit of the Americas and drive where the F1 drives. So, I mean, you know, we have such a wide variety, but it's really any track where I can take a small car out and still have a great drive, because you don't need to be fighting down 3,000-foot straightaways with, you know, the tack pegged. And
no, but I completely agree with you, because I like some of these smaller hole in the wall. It's like finding that little hole in the wall local restaurant that, you know, it's not the one that people talk about all the time, but it's like the one the locals know. And so that's why I actually like my home track at Carolina Motorsports Park, which is in, you know, Kershaw, South Carolina, which, you know, literally the middle of nowhere.
One of the first tracks we ever went to.
Yeah. I mean, it's doesn't have any elevation changes really, which I like it as a track as an instructor, because I can just teach the technical turns. You don't have to worry about not being able to see the track. One of my first track events when I first started was at Road Atlanta. And, you know, when you're coming down that back straight and you're hauling ass, and, you know, you get to the heavy braking zone and you make the hairpin left, right, and then you start going up the hill under the bridge and you can't see the track. And you're sitting there holding on for dear life going, okay, the track was here last lap. I know it's going to be here this lap. I just have to hold on and aim for that tree and know that the car's going to come over that and it's going to settle and the weight's going to settle. And then I'm just going to shoot around the right hander onto the front straight. But you're kind of shitting bricks at the same time. So it's kind of nice teaching newbies on a flat track where they can see everything. It's a little bit safer, but as an experienced driver, it's like, yeah, you love that roller coaster feel of, you know, going over those.
I'll always take a little bit of that, but I hear you. Yes, at Kershaw, I could look out over the domain and see everything and know where the cars were at all times for the most part. But yeah, a little elevation change, a little something off camber. That's going to put the track in the top 10.
I love Barber down in Alabama and Birmingham. And that is a phenomenal track, because that's the type of track where there's not a lot of long straights. So the high horsepower cars don't have as much of an advantage. You can take, you know, a much lower horsepower car that's set up to handle the curves and just absolutely drive the snot out of it. And that's a track where we started the joke of, you know, brakes are for sissies. You don't need those.
Yeah, that's also the problem with my program, though, is a lot of the tracks that you're not talking about, we don't visit because of all those reasons, you know. So the brakes are for sissies tracks. I need my customers to brake. I'd like to put that in a disclosure.
Yeah, I like my students to brake as well. So
a lot of the tracks on our circuit, you know, they have to be. We can't scare people away either, you know. And that's a really important part of it, because I think too many people think that race car driving is not for them for so many reasons. It's too expensive. It's something that you have to be foreign to do, or it's just so freaking dangerous that, like, I'm not going to get anywhere near it. And those things don't have to be true. And so we're trying to prove that simultaneously, even though we're letting you have your cake and eat it too, which means I've never been to a track. I don't own a Ferrari, but Adam says I can have both these things on the same time. So if he says so, how does Adam pull it off? Well, we've got to do it at some manageable racetracks, and we've got to do it with the right processes in place. But with all that being said, we still go to plenty of cool places.
And even if you drive one of these supercars at 50% of the car's capability, you are still going faster than you've probably ever gone in your life.
Yes, guaranteed.
The car is just so incredibly capable. So, yeah, because I was looking, you know, at your current fleet list on your website too, and I was like, ooh, which one do I want? Which one do I want? And I'd probably have to try the Ferrari GTB just to try it.
Yeah.
But I would end up probably back in the Porsche. Just that's my happy place. All right, so I'm going to put all these links in the description below, but tell people if they want to learn more about Xtreme Xperience and sign up for one of these ridiculously amazing days, or if they want to get one for their loved one who has this on the bucket list. I mean, what a phenomenal birthday, anniversary, you know, Christmas, Hanukkah, Yule, you know, whatever kind of present. This is just amazing. Where do they go? What do they do?
Go straight to our website, www.xxspeed.com, and you will find everything you need right there.
That makes it easy. I absolutely love it. So you should mention something. There might be a discount code for Straight Shift podcast listeners.
You know, yes. Let me send it to you, and you can post it in the link.
Awesome. We'll get a car chick code. Well, thanks so much, Adam. This has been so much fun. Audience, tell me what's on your bucket list. Put it in the comments. And is it car related? Is it something totally different? I just want to know what your hopes and dreams are. And then Adam and I will both challenge you to then make it a reality. So until next time, folks, drive safely. We're out of here.
The Straight Shift podcast is copyright Leanne Shattuck, the Car Chick. All views expressed by guest and or co-hosts are those of the guest and or co-hosts, and not necessarily those of Leanne Shattuck or the Car Chick.